call to order the March 17th, 2026 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. Jean, could you please take roll?
Here.
John Simons.
Here.
A. John Gover.
I'm here.
Peter Boynton.
Aye.
Kate Kelly. Here.
Okay, let's start with, we're just gonna go in, any reason not to go in order?
Nope.
Okay, we're gonna go in order. A&R Plan, 169 Chestnut Street, Jack Cahill, applicant proposed to subdivide the lot into 4 buildable lots. Do we have anyone here from the applicant?
I don't see anyone.
What are we expecting though?
I'm always expecting somebody.
Should we give it a few minutes and see?
Yeah, you might as well pick it up after.
Okay, we're gonna give that 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to it. Lydia Lane, bond release, also Jack Cahill. So-
Yeah, but this is pretty,
Okay,
sim-
go ahead.
it's pretty straightforward. So Lydia Lane was a subdivision. It's a private road. It's not named Lydia. It's actually got Salem Street addresses. So it began with 166 Salem Street, which is directly across from the cemetery. It was permitted in '09, so it's taken quite a bit of time to get it constructed. The third lot was the house that got relocated on Salem Street, and that's fully constructed. We have an as-built, we have an engineer certification, we have an as-built of the roadway itself as well, and so I'm just recommending releasing the bond.
Okay, any questions or comments? Motion to approve the bond release for Lydia Lane.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Let's go to, we'll do the discussion item, and then we'll go back to the NR. So discussion item, clean energy siting and permitting requirements. I think we have Andrew Shapiro here to give us a short presentation.
So we have Andrew, as well as, I want to introduce Samantha Carr. She's our new staff planner. She's supporting CPC, so I know John is familiar with Samantha's work to date. Andrew's going to kind of kick off and let the board know what's ahead of us, and then Samantha's going to pick up the bylaw itself. And you can most likely expect that we'll need to have a bylaw in place at next year's town meeting. So.
Okay, Samantha, want to give us 2 minutes just to introduce yourself? And we'll go to Andrew.
Hi all. Some of you I've met, some of you are new faces. Nice to meet you this evening. My name's Samantha Carr. I recently started working as a staff planner with the Community and Economic Development Department. I support our long-range planning portfolio, some of the other committees here, including Community Preservation Committee. So looking forward to working with all of you.
Great, thank you. Glad to have you. All right, Andrew, see what you got.
Okay, good to be back. For the record, Andrew Shapiro, Director of Community and Economic Development. And welcome again to Samantha. I'm looking forward to working with her as well as you all. And Jean is always on any new developments coming before the board. This is in regards to the state's new efforts around clean energy siting and permitting. So we can just jump right into it, Jean. So the reason for this is the 2024 Climate Act, where there was reform. Oh, is it not showing up down here?
It is not.
Flat panel, is this flat panel on?
It's not
Oh, we see check signal cable.
Oh, it's coming on, okay.
All right.
There we go.
All right, great, we're back online. So the 2024 Climate Act was signed by the governor back in 2024, late 2024, and basically it's designed to overhaul how Massachusetts builds infrastructure related to its net zero by 2050 emissions goals. And within the broader regulations that have been brought forward, they basically have 2 categories. There are small clean energy projects and there are large clean energy projects. And there's a difference going forward on who is going to permit these projects. The smaller projects will be permitted by the municipality. Larger projects will be permitted by the Energy Facilities Siting Board, which is a state agency. And as you can see, there's a difference in the generation capacity of what's defined as small and large. Under 25 megawatts is considered a small project. 25 megawatts and larger is considered a larger project. And there's also storage capacity requirements on what's considered small and large as well. So we'll get a little more into this as we go forward, but I just wanted to kind of set the table by mentioning that.
Is that a board that already exists, or is that something
There is
that's
a energy
created?
facility siting board that does exist.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
Great.
And I apologize for the sizing of the font here. Yeah, thanks for zooming in a little bit, Gene. But this is just sort of an overview of what type of clean energy facilities that we're talking about here. So the consolidated local permit, and we'll get into the 12-month decision shot clock, if you will. They apply to small clean energy infrastructure facilities such as solar photovoltaic installations, so like ground-mounted solar systems, battery energy storage systems, so stationary systems with energy capacity of less than 100 megawatts, wind facilities, so onshore wind facilities, and ancillary infrastructure equipment necessary to support the functioning of these things, as well as the modification of these types of projects. And then you have kind of two different types of tiers with small projects. There's, residential, so think about like roof-mounted solar systems, and then there's tier 2 and 3, which are more sort of like medium to larger residential size projects, things that might amount to, say, a small field where you have some maybe 1 or 2 wind facilities or some ground-mounted solar systems. So this is just an overview of the types of projects that the law is meant to, or the regulations are meant to sort of regulate. And then the larger facilities are just larger versions of what we just discussed. Solar wind projects, 25 megawatts or larger, battery energy storage systems, 100 megawatts or larger. Those projects fall under the sole jurisdictions of the State Energy Facility Siting Board, and they're not subject to local zoning bylaws. However, there will still be an avenue for local municipalities to essentially appeal to the Energy Facilities Siting Board to be involved in the process so that they can submit comments and, help to review the project.
So does that mean our solar bylaw is going to need to change?
Well, that's, I think, the thing we need, that's one of the things we need to look at this year. And I think, Gene mentioned that Samantha's going to help lead that process. But yeah, we're essentially going to have to look at if language in that zoning bylaw is going to have to change. And certainly something we're going to have to address, and I'll go over it a little more as we go forward. But one of the biggest things is the 12-month permitting timeline that we have, because basically now we'll have 12 months to review local local approvals of these types of projects. And if they're not approved within a 12-month timeline, they are constructively approved. So we obviously want to avoid those situations. So this is just an overview of the current zoning framework that we have in town. We obviously have you all, the planning board, are reviewing these types of projects, and you're able to deny a project based on broad local preferences. The Climate Act shifts the regulatory model, shifts that towards a regulatory model where the board must essentially sort of review these things, and you're going to have less discretion on some of these projects. So we have currently a definition for solar energy systems, as well as wind facilities, but we don't really specifically cite any definitions with respect to battery energy storage systems. So that's another thing we're going to want to probably have to address in the bylaw, is just looking at developing a definition and some energy and some permitting regulatory framework around how we handle battery energy storage systems locally. And as we mentioned before, the existing local procedures, they follow, standard 48 timelines, but the new regulations require us to look at these in a 12-month period of time. And also currently, when somebody appeals a board decision, those appeals are handled in land court, but going forward, appeals will be handled at the Energy Facility Siting Board. So basically, as you can see, there's a pattern happening here. The state's sort of trying to coalesce more of the permitting and regulatory framework for energy facility siting. So starting in October, we'll have to offer an optional expedited permitting process at the local level that features a consolidated application, and we, again, have to adhere to a 12-month deadline to issue a final single decision. the expedited permitting process will be overseen by a local government representative, either the chief administrative officer of the local government or a designee. So let me just go into a little more detail on that. So between now and October, we're going to probably we'll have a discussion with the town manager, we'll involve the planning department and others, and, she'll probably want to designate someone for this role. It could be someone like me. I'm not saying I want that role, or it could be somebody else who basically takes in a consolidated local application that's developed, and that application, will be reviewed for completeness by the designee, and then it goes forward to the local boards. So planning board still has jurisdiction. Conservation Commission will still have jurisdiction if it's jurisdictional to them, if it's within, a certain distance from a resource area or in a buffer zone or something like that. If it's in an historic district, the historic district still has jurisdiction, but it'll be up to that local representative to ensure that all the boards are operating in an efficient manner to get it permitted within the 12-month timeline. And so all those decisions have to come back within the 12-month timeline. So effectively, nothing really changes in terms of reviewing these projects because they're still going before the local boards, the smaller projects at least. But again, it's the 12-month timeline, and it's sort of taking in the common application.
So, I mean, the small versus large here is by how much energy it's putting out, where ours
Correct.
is by size. So
Yes.
that's obviously a issue that we'll need to figure out.
But I also think that those two characteristics go hand in hand. I think the higher output, and I'm not by any means an expert on this, but I think the higher output or higher capacity energy storage and facilities and clean energy facilities are larger ones physically as well.
So the part I don't understand, Andrew, is that you mentioned that the process is going to flip to the presumption that you do approve it if it meets the standards, and, kind of similar a little bit to site plan review. But at the same time, you're saying the process remains the same.
So the process remains the same in terms of if a project today came to town, it would need planning board approval under a site plan review process. And if it was jurisdictional to Concom, it would have to go to Concom. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't revert to, say, like a 40B process where it's all consolidated under one board. It still is a multi-jurisdictional
No,
board
but
process.
today it's a special permit and there's discretion, and you
Yes.
said the discretion goes. What makes the discretion fall away?
Oh.
The state law, or is it something in addition to that?
I think the regulatory requirements will give the local boards less discretion on denial
Okay.
overall.
I mean, right now, we won't know until we have the guidelines and all
Yeah.
that, but I mean, right now, the small ones are pretty much by right anyway. And so it's only medium and large that are by special permit, which very well may be out of our hands anyway, because
Right,
they're going to this
yeah.
other board. So it may not actually change much,
Yeah.
because the small projects are basically by right anyway.
Yeah, but I'd say with respect to the small projects, at the very least, it probably behooves us to look at integrating the battery energy storage facilities into our bylaw language, because that's something we don't currently address, and it's something that is becoming more, I guess, of the norm. It's a newer technology we're seeing more and more of nowadays.
Sure.
And we actually recently had a brief TRC meeting, I would say, probably about 6 months ago, maybe less than that, maybe 3 months ago, where somebody was looking to just add a battery storage facility to their property, sort of as a battery backup, not a large facility. So we've already seen some interest locally on doing something like
What
that.
exactly is that?
So basically, it's just, it's a system, and there was a picture of it in one of the previous slides, but basically, they're kind of like these white boxes that basically store energy that as it comes off the grid, and you can deploy it sort of like a generator.
No, the Tesla offers them, and I get advertisements for them. I didn't even think that would
Yeah.
require anything,
I
frankly.
think a lot.
Maybe accessory uses, the way we see it.
But if
Maybe
it-
it likely will be an accessory use to a solar
Correct, yeah.
application. So that, I think that's where we'll see it more
I mean,
prevalent.
a lot of those you can just put inside your house, though. I'm not sure how we would even know about them. But okay, for another day and time.
Is the state providing any guidelines with respect to battery storage units for the municipal fire departments to follow. Typically, these type of battery storage units are of some concern to the fire departments, given the nature of the fires if they have a runaway.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if these regulations speak to that particular hazard and how the fire department's supposed to handle it. It's entirely possible that the state fire marshal's office or another state office jurisdictional to public safety might have those regulations or information for fire departments to use. But I'm not certain that these regulations strictly address that aspect of it,
Yeah,
only the
I
permitting
would
side.
Assume it would come out of the state fire marshal. It's
Yep.
just probably unnecessary to ask because they certainly should be doing that.
I don't disagree at all, and I do think that, you know, because we have these TRC meetings where we typically tee up with, you know, prospective applicants, a number of issues, usually the fire department's present at those, and there's an opportunity for the fire department to express any concerns or get ahead of what they need to do before someone actually brings a permit forward. So that, in addition to any, to your point, state regulations that may be out there would be certainly helpful for that.
Okay, so what's next, Andrew?
So this just goes a little more detail on the 12-month timeline. I don't know if is there a couple other slides, Gene?
I mean, I think, so what comes, I'm more, what comes next for us?
Yeah, I would say what comes next is, as Gene mentioned, I think that the nearer term is designating the local person who is going to take in applications, developing a common application. Okay, and that's even before getting bylaws approved at next town meeting, because again, this gets into effect in October, which would be before next town meeting. So we still need to have someone who can take in the common application and help guide the 12-month permitting process locally. But then at the same time, I think we also just need to, you know, work with the state. They're going to be putting out final guidance on the regulations, and so the planning department will help to draft any adjustments to the bylaw that are necessary or other regulations that we need to implement locally.
Okay.
So if we get an application in the meantime, before we change the bylaws,
As of October 1st,
Yeah.
the law is effective, and so we'll have to comply with Mass General Law.
okay, and it'll supersede? Like if we don't have battery storage?
Correct. If we don't have if we don't have a battery energy storage facility definition within our bylaw, we have to go with the state definition and any permitting that guidance that the state puts out for those types of facilities.
I mean, I think generally solar is found under Dover, so I think if anything, you'd fall back to that and treat it as like a limited site plan review, unless it's a small project, which is kind of basically by rights. I think we'd have things we can look to. Okay.
And do we have potential in North Andover for more large or small?
I think it's a loaded question because, I mean, it's entirely, so let me just say this. I don't think, so it's, with respect to public property, you know, if the town wanted to get more active in terms of, for instance, installing solar on top of, you know, school or municipal building roofs, that could be an issue. And I don't know how much power that would draw, but in some cases it could rise to potentially the larger configuration. I don't think there's any open space that the town has that would be utilized for this, unless the town saw it useful to have its own battery storage backup somewhere. But again, there's no plans that I'm aware of for that. I don't think there's a policy developed for that. And as far as private property, it's obviously up to local property owners to decide if that's something they want to entertain. There's certainly some swaths of property around town. We all know which ones those are for the most part that, you know, we always talk about what could be developed there. And I suppose if they decided they wanted to have a large solar installation or some other type of energy facility, they could entertain that. We have one down at Osgood Landing, right next to the building there. So obviously they took advantage of having some energy facilities there. But to the extent that other property owners are interested in doing the same, I haven't heard anything.
And the one by Osgood is considered large, I assume. Looks big.
I would imagine, yeah. I don't know the exact megawatts on that one, but
If I remember correct, that one in prior to our solar bylaw.
Yeah.
So-
Remember, most of it was already on the roof, and the only reason why it got
Right, they
moved to the
relocated
field
it from
was
the roof.
because of Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, let's go back to A&R Plan, 169 Chestnut Street. Anyone here to speak on that in terms of the applicant? No? Okay, did you
I sent
tell
an
us?
email, but it's pretty straightforward also.
Okay, why don't you just tell us about it?
Okay, so this is 169 Chestnut Street. It's the corner of Quail Run and Chestnut. Hold on one second, sorry. So you may recall, the owner of this land has been before you, this is his third time to subdivide this lot. So first time was in '22, he came back again in '25. In '25, he was only going to break off the lower right-hand lot. In '22, he was going to divide it into 4 buildable lots. Both of those were endorsed, approved by the board, but he never recorded them. And so at this point, he's got 2 of these lots marketed, so they're the 2 lower lots. And my understanding is he has them under agreement, and so he's looking now to subdivide all 4 again. They all have the required frontage, they have the required area, and they have access to the area on public ways.
Okay.
Is there any change from what we approved before?
There's a very slight change to the original one back in '22 on the lot line here, I believe it is.
But it's only marginal, it's
It's
same number of
marginal,
lots,
yeah.
same
And the-
configuration, everything.
Yep, and all 4 lots were approved as part of the original Quail Run subdivision. The owner at the time just didn't break out those 4. He left his lot whole. And so the original subdivision, I believe from '79, showed this parcel being subdivided into 4 lots. And
Now, why is there 5 there?
what was that?
Why are there 5? What am I missing?
So this is one. This is another one. These are the 2 marketed ones. This is the original house. So he's got a little leg here to comply with area. And then this is the larger of the 4. And this is the existing barn that is
The other
mostly,
5 properties are just
Existing houses?
existing properties.
the only houses shown are the ones on these 4
No,
lots.
I think John was asking, just the other
The other 5,
5, the,
they're not part of what
Not
we're
with
talking
anything.
about
No,
here.
no, they're not.
they're just part of the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll just draw your attention, I emailed late today, we received public comment from Melinda Perrone, just commenting on a number of aspects of this. I will say she commented that 2 don't show the contiguous buildable area, but they do. And then she speaks to the size of the lot that the house is on as being .58 acres. It complies with the 25,000 minimum required, and it's comparable to the other 5 that you're pointing out here, John. Those are comparable size lots, and so she just, again, pointed out that some of the lots across the street in Chestnut are larger than .58. So,
So I will acknowledge that we have received that. We always appreciate comments, though I will say on an A&R, we don't generally take comments nor have a discussion. It's not a public hearing, and frankly, we don't have discretion on an A&R. An A&R requires there to be 3 things: frontage, which this has, it requires access, which this has, and it requires lots that are
Sufficient width, grade, and construction, yes.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So, if those 3 things are met, whether we like the project, hate the project, don't care about the project, it doesn't matter, we have to approve it. So, that being said, it meets all of the legal criteria, so
I make a motion to direct the development director to sign the Form A.
Okay,
Second
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that is approved as an A&R. Okay, next, so we've done 1, we've done 2, we've done 3. New public hearing, 200 Bridle Path, Ryan and Alyssa Heffernan, application for a watershed special permit under Article 4, Part 5, and Article 10 of the zoning bylaw to authorize additions to an existing single-family dwelling to accommodate an accessory dwelling unit, including minor driveway expansion and site improvements. Proposed work is located within the non-disturbance zone of the Watershed Protection District. Property is located in the R1 zoning district. Jean, why don't you give us an introduction, and then we'll hear from the applicant.
So I have quite a few notes on this. Typically, as you know, watershed special permits, if stormwater review has been completed ahead of the hearing, I often draft a decision for your consideration, whether you wanted to review it or not. For this, I have not, and the reason I have not is this application has also filed a notice of intent before the Conservation Commission. The commission has opened the hearing, and they've, I would call it, put some challenges out there to try to mitigate some of the impacts to wetlands. And so there is potential the plan will be revised between now and your next meeting. So the house was constructed in '78. The proposed addition is located within the non-disturbance zone, so within 100 feet of the wetland under the watershed protection bylaw. From a conservation standpoint, the house was constructed prior to the local wetland regs. Portions of the house are within the 50-foot no-build zone. Rear porch, the deck, and the patio are within the 25-foot no-disturb zone. And so they're already encroaching within the 25 and 50, which is concerning to conservation, but the house predates their regs. The front addition measures approximately 13 by 24 feet, and the rear addition 8 by 25 feet. The front addition will expand the existing garage, so right here is the front addition, and that at the first floor, and provide living space for the ADU above. So the garage gets pulled forward and ADU is above it.
Question, Gene.
Yep.
So, would this require a separate permit for the ADU, or is it attached so it doesn't, if
Exactly.
this is approved?
They're before you because they're in the watershed protection district, and our bylaw said you're still subject to watershed permitting if it
Okay.
applies.
Understood. Thank you.
So the rear addition will consist of two distinct sections, constructing a new second-story porch and enclosed stairs for access to the second-story ADU. These elements are over existing lawn and crushed stone and are to be located 18.5 feet from the wetland. The waiver has been requested for Concom for both the no disturb and no build. The application also proposes converting an existing rear 3-season porch to a 4-season on columns with crushed stone below. Also replacement of an existing deteriorating deck and existing patio, both within the same footprint, but these are also within the 50 and 25 buffer zones. And lastly, a driveway expansion is proposed right to the side of the driveway. Construction of an infiltration trench and relocation of the front walkway are proposed to accommodate the front addition. The driveway will also be paved as part of the proposed work. The Conservation Administrator has confirmed the wetland line, so obviously it's sensitive, 25 feet, there's not margin for error there, so she has confirmed the accuracy. And the stormwater peer review, as I said, it has concluded, but they have two recommendations. One is to condition test pits for the trench to make sure it can infiltrate the volume and to confirm the groundwater elevation. And to just be assured that the homeowners are aware of the maintenance required for the trench to make sure it operates properly in the future.
Okay. So, we're not going to decide anything tonight because we're going to wait for Concom to make sure the plans don't change significantly. Fine, that makes sense. So what I would say is, why don't you guys give us an overview? If anyone has specific questions, fine, but I don't think it makes sense to get into too much of the details in case they change, right? And if they don't change, then great, then just tell them the next time. But if they do change, then we've kind of heard it twice for no reason. So let's do that.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. Dennis Gricci with Andover Consultants here on behalf of the applicant, Ryan and Alyssa Heffernan, for the proposed construction of an ADU addition. I think Jean did a great job describing the project. We did meet with Conservation Commission at their last meeting. We are continued to the April 8th meeting. There was some discussions at that meeting related to some plan changes, some minor ones, including kind of relocation of the construction entrance so it does not go over the infiltration trench. They're worried about compaction of that trench. So we can certainly make that change. There's also discussion about some planting or mitigation for the waiver request. So as part of the potential granting of the waiver, we would provide a planting plan to further buffer the wetland. As you can see, it's right along the edge of an existing fence, so that the lawn is maintained up to the edge of the fence, and the wetland is just on the other side of the fence. We have also gotten some more information from the architect and the builder as to how those two rear additions will be built. So there's one addition in the rear, as Jean's pointing out. There's two components. The one on the left side of the plan will be a second-story porch. So the ADU will be above the garage, second-story living space. The left side of that will be a porch. That will be supported by one helical-driven pile. So if the board is not familiar, the way that those piles are driven, it's basically just screwed into the ground. It can be done with the hydraulic attachment to a skid steer. There's really minimal, if any, earth disturbance. So that's the left component. The right component will be access to the ADU, so stairs from the garage up to the second-story ADU. Similar fashion, that will be supported by a helical pile at four corners. That will be elevated off the ground 3 to 4 feet. The mudroom will be elevated within the garage a couple feet, so the stairs in the back there on the right will also be elevated. So beneath both those features will be crushed stone, something impervious. So that's information that we're going to provide to the commission in a little bit more detail before our next meeting, as we've just gotten that information kind of from the builder and the architect. The three-season porch, again, as Gene's kind of pointing out here, that is an existing three-season porch, which the homeowner would like to turn into a more four-season porch. The deck just to the right of that is rather old, falling apart, splintering, so that will be replaced, and it's the same exact configuration and dimensions. And the patio there on the right, again, it's an existing patio, and it will be replaced in the exact same configuration and dimensions. Gene, I don't know, I did send you an email as I was kind of running over here. You might be in your inbox. It does have some pictures showing the those existing features, the patio, the deck, three-season porch, and also the location of the addition in the rear, which was I would say the largest portion of the discussion with the commission was related to that rear addition. The front addition, as Gene said, is going to be over an existing driveway, so the increase in impervious area as a whole is relatively minor. We did quantify that in our response to Horsley Witten's peer review letter, and we did, I think, generally agree to a test pit to confirm the groundwater elevation at the time of construction. So if you scroll down, Gene, maybe to the second or third page. So that in the foreground is the existing patio, which will be replaced, and then just behind that is the deck, and then the three-season porch there in the background.
So the patio is going to be the same footprint?
Same footprint,
And
exactly.
what's going to be the new material?
New material, yes. I don't know if
We haven't decided on that.
yeah, no material selected, but
Okay.
and if you keep scrolling, maybe one or two more. So that is the back of the existing garage. So again, the porch is going to be on the right side of that picture, elevated up one story. To the left will be the elevated stairs into the ADU. When I say elevated, it's going to be elevated anywhere from 2 to 3 feet above the ground. And if you go down one more, so this is just a different perspective. So same, again, the background of that picture will be where on the left side of that is going to be where the stairs are to access the ADU, and then on the right side will be that second story porch. Both of them will be supported by those helical-driven piles, which again are very minimally invasive. If there's almost zero spoils when those are installed, and they're done in a matter of minutes or hours.
I would say once you finalize, if you finalize plans with Concom, that any changes should be run through the peer review, just to make sure that that there's no additional comments that need to be made. If it's minor, I'm sure there won't be. If it's more significant, maybe it's get better, maybe it's worse, but we should at least run it through the peer reviewer once that's done. I mean, it's great that you guys are taking advantage of the ADU and adding something in a place that is, minimally impactful to everybody else, but can be hopefully very impactful and helpful for your family. So that's a great thing.
Can we see the caption on the bottom here?
And so this is where that garage will be extended out just beyond that stone apron. So
And
that
how does the second-story addition compare to that partial dormer?
do you have any perspectives of that?
So the second-story addition will be adjacent to that dormer. It will go straight up equally. I have actually, I do have a picture here, Dennis. I can show you.
So that's
you.
And what is the plan for the ADU? Who's going to live there?
It's my mother-in-law, 72-year-old Susan Candela, my wife's mother.
Can you email that to Jean so we can make it part of the record?
Yes, I have copies I can leave.
Or if
out
we can
you
leave a
now.
copy.
I can leave a copy with you, Jean.
Wonderful.
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
great.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, she's been a lifelong town resident, and, yeah.
Does she live with you now or live somewhere else?
She lives in one of our rooms
Okay,
right
so
now.
making more
And
room.
I have to apologize to the commission if I have a little out of sorts. I just got back in last night. My father passed away on Thursday, so I was down in Rhode Island handling his affairs there. So, the only comment I will make here is he and I have had a lot of conversations about this. Growing up in Staten Island, New York, we were in close proximity to my grandparents a lot, right? And my wife and I have a 3-year-old daughter, Veronica, and having her with close proximity to her grandmother is something that's very important to us. We were very excited when the ADU law was passed by the state, and we're hopeful that we can take advantage of that to have my mother-in-law have her forever home here and work with the commission and work with conservation to make sure we do something that is fair and equitable and, just as minimally invasive as possible, that we can both achieve both of our goals at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, I mean, from whenever we get watershed special permits, and Concom has similar feelings, is that it's just, we want to make it happen, we just need to make sure with access, that this is close to drinking water and things like that, that we have to be very diligent with how we go about saying yes.
We absolutely understand that, and we want to work with the commission to make sure there's no impacts to our neighbors, there's no impacts to the town. We're very cognizant of the drinking water as well. Know that we're in the watershed district with Lake of Chickawick, but thank you.
And you're on town water and town sewer?
We are, yes. They converted that before we purchased the property about 9 years ago. They were on a septic before, but that conversion happened before we purchased the property.
Any other questions?
The only question I just want to frame it is, Gene, how close was the corner of the property to the wetlands before, and how close will it be now? Or maybe you can answer it, I don't know. I just want to get that as a frame of reference.
Gene, if you go back to
Yep.
that site plan, the three-season porch is actually, so the three-season porch currently is 19.2 feet away. So if Gene, no, I'm sorry.
Trying to make it bigger.
So the three-season porch there, it's dimensioned at 19.2 feet from the closest corner to the wetland.
The proposed.
The
porch
proposed is,
is
18.6.
gonna be 18.6.
Okay. And the corner of the house there is how much? Just right there. So,
So what do you say? Add another 6 feet, 5 feet?
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
That's the 25-foot buffer that Gene is hovering over, so that's probably 25 and a half feet away from the wetland.
Where are any abutters or neighbors located?
So to the left of our property, that's a plot that's owned by the town. And to the right, you can see the property line going diagonal, almost at that 45-degree angle. That is the property line owned by Kenneth Yamin, Pamela Yamin. And she was here at the Conservation Committee meeting, and she was in full support of this building. She made a public comment saying that she
all over
fully
there.
supports that.
Okay.
And then what's behind? Yeah, what's?
Behind the property is
Yeah.
Small Oak Farms.
Oh,
It's the
that's
bridle
right.
path
Looks
orchard
like
of Small Oak Farms. So that wall on the back, you can see on the property line there, that's a stone wall that denotes the property line between Small Oak Farms. So we get the tractors go behind our house all the time, which we love, seeing the kids do it. But we see that all the fall and springtime, so yes.
Okay. All right, so we should,
So the Conservation Commission meets on the 8th, you meet on the 7th, so I would recommend continuing it to the following meeting, which I believe is the 28th because of school vacation week.
double checking. Okay, 28th. Okay, so we'll continue until April 28th. If you resolve with Concom on the 7th, and you can get whatever the plans are over to Gene and to the peer reviewer, then maybe that would be enough time for us to issue a decision on the 28th, but it just really depends on how far you get with Concom on the 8th.
Understood.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We're hopeful for it.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you for your time. Have a great evening.
Okay. Annual town meeting zoning bylaw amendment articles. Jean?
Okay, so for this, I gave you copies with the changes highlighted.
Okay.
So you can just, you've seen these for quite a while now, so I think we should be able to get through this tonight. As you know, we had originally noticed the hearing to open on the 24th. That was the blizzard night. There was nothing on the board posted when the meeting got continued till, which would have been the next meeting, and therefore we had to renotice it again for tonight. And I'm hopeful that you can make recommendations tonight ahead of the warrant going to print. But I believe now, previously it was going to print early April. I believe it'll now print April 10th, and so you do have one more meeting. If there's anything you're not comfortable, make a recommendation on.
Okay.
So that being said, I was going to start with
So these are public hearings?
this is a public hearing.
Okay,
It's a
so
new public hearing on the agenda.
and is it one public hearing for all articles or a public hearing?
Public hearing for the two recommended zoning amendments.
So we're going to officially open up the public hearings as to the two town meeting zoning bylaw amendment articles, one being accessory dwelling unit, an update to chapter 195, and the second one being site plan review. So Jean, why don't you just tell us briefly what the changes are, then we'll take any public comment, and then we'll vote on them.
So if you start with the one that is titled Article 8 Supplementary Regulations, Part 3 Site Plan Review. It's just a two-page document, and so I have the highlights in B. It's just a housekeeping, the reference. The bylaw got renumbered somehow since we first adopted this, and so it's just a reference to the proper section. The next page in B, the same reference, and then we are bringing in non-conforming structures to require planning board's approval, just like they do for multifamily or detached ADUs. So if an ADU is proposed on a pre-existing non-conforming lot that has a structure on it, it would have to come to planning. And so all these paragraphs just get updated to include and a protected use ADU proposed on a lot with a pre-existing non-conforming structure. And that it's incredibly redundant. I think if we had to start over again, we could probably more efficiently write this article, but for now, I've just written it like that. And so the somewhat more material changes are in the other one. And so the other one is specific to the ADU bylaw, which is Part 14. And so these changes are a result of the Attorney General's office decision on our approved bylaw. And so they recommended some housekeeping edits. And so to the definition section, I've added pre-existing non-conforming structure, and that's a structure that does not conform with zoning. Non-conformance, so with E, before we said they had to go to the ZBA, and the result of sending somebody to the ZBA could result in a special permit, and that's why they struck that language altogether. So we don't have language to strike because they did, and it's not in the bylaw now. So I've added a non-conformance section, essentially saying they would have to go to the ZBA for a finding before coming to the planning board, so not for a special permit, for a finding. And then another housekeeping under general requirements, we said they had to comply with all dimensional requirements. The law says they do not have to comply with the lot size. So that's the only thing on our dimensional table they wouldn't have to, so I added with the exception of minimum lot size requirements. On letter E on the top of page 4, we had a one-family dwelling. That really should have been principal dwelling all along, so that didn't come out of the Attorney General's office. And then the table of use, if you remember, they had struck some no's because our table of use incorrectly said single-family homes were allowed in the Osgood and planned residential district. But the text in the bylaw did not say they were allowed. And the intent of the table is just a summary. It's not the governing document. And so when I explained that to her, She understood what we're doing here. We're just going back and put it to the way we wanted it to be.
The way that it is, the way that our bylaw actually says.
The way the bylaw says, and it's fixing the table to correspond with the bylaw. And that being said, oh, I'm sorry, one more page. Okay, letter I commented in my staff report. When our bylaw was approved, we were allowed to include this language: the ADU shall not be used for boarding, lodging, or other commercial use, with the exception of permitted home occupation. Then come fall town meetings, they got a bylaw that pretty much said the exact same thing, and they made a determination to strike it because they felt that or other commercial use could be interpreted to mean a rental unit becoming a commercial use for somebody. And so I've added language exclusive of the rental of an ADU for a residential use, just so it can't be interpreted to be a commercial use because you're renting your property. And D, Kate, I tried to nuance some language here to account for the detached ADU having stairs that lead to a deck as opposed to the direct entrance to a house. And so I did have the opportunity to talk to the Attorney General's office and review all these edits, and she was comfortable with them. So I think that's a huge plus heading into town meeting. And I think that was it. Hold on. And town councils reviewed them as well.
Great. Any board member questions or comments? Seen any, are there any public comments? Not seeing any, okay. So can we get a motion to recommend favorable action on the two zoning bylaws? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry,
No.
Chair, and I should have,
Go ahead. Which one?
this is a typographical, but, and I should have raised it with Jean sooner. But the term non-conforming has a hyphen in the site plan review, and then it doesn't have a hyphen in the definition and in the other one. So I don't know I don't know if there's a reason that,
There's no reason.
so probably get rid of it in the site plan.
Site plan.
Do you think it should, I think it, trying to think of,
Get out your funkin' language.
I would hyphenate it, I think.
Can,
Hyphens are good.
I just don't know where.
Yeah,
I like hyphens.
I like to over-punctuate.
Yes, I do too.
We keep just putting the hyphen in between non and conforming, and then
I like semi.
here
Well, I think
it's
that's
non.
just because it's ending, it doesn't
No,
have
it-
room to the whole thing.
It's other, it's,
Okay, so do you want the hyphen or no?
well, I don't, the chair does, so
I just don't know which is, if there is a correct one. I don't really have strong feelings about it. So,
I'm not a hyphen expert,
yeah.
so I don't have a
It
comment.
should be consistent, that's the big
Yeah,
thing.
agreed.
that's all, yeah. And sometimes it is at the end of a sentence, but or up a line, but,
Okay.
Let's see if we
I
have
see it. I found another one that has it.
MGL, non,
well, it might be informed by the way it's written in the statute, I
that's
would
what
say.
I'm,
I'm sorry to raise it, this is like, the hyphen is not gonna make or break the.
in 40A, it is not hyphenated, so let's go with that. 40A, section 6, it is not hyphenated. It is non-conforming, all one word. So let's do that.
So I think the one that leads with the ADU one that leads with the definition is good, then. It's just the other one that needs hyphens taken out a couple of places.
Okay.
Okay, and we're gonna,
Thank you,
yep,
Chair.
nope, thank you. All right, so get a motion to recommend, right now we're just recommending action. We're not closing the public hearings, so those won't close until,
Okay.
right?
Yep, makes sense.
Until town meeting, right? That's what we usually do.
Right before town
We'll still go to warrant, and it'll have our recommendation as favorable action, but if there are other typographical or other issues, we can change them. Okay, so I get a motion to recommend favorable action on the bylaws as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Favorable, wonderful. We'll continue those until April, let's do April, the last date of April, that way. We don't need to take them up every meeting, or do we want to have multiple?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
When do you want to continue the public hearing till?
April 7th, that's fine.
Okay, April 7th, that's fine.
In case something comes up.
Yep, April 7th. And that way we can, and someone wants to comment, we'll have multiple hearings for it. Okay. Great. Next. Let's just keep going in order. Stonecleave Estates, Peter Termini on behalf of Barbara Adams. Request for an insubstantial change to the approved November 4th, 2025 planned residential development special permit to authorize the elimination of the water line extension and new fire hydrant located at Stonecleave with a condition that the new homes will all have sprinkler systems installed. Jean, quick rundown.
Sure. Right, so Peter has submitted a request on behalf of the property owner, Barbara Adams, and Barbara has submitted a letter of authorization for him to make this request. Peter is marketing the property for her. The insubstantial change is to eliminate the water line extension from Duncan Drive to Stonecleave Road, which would have serviced the 3 homes and added a hydrant in Stonecleave. As an alternative, sprinkler systems from the dwellings are proposed. The application originally did suggest sprinkler systems in the homes. The fire department requested if there's any way to get water there, they'd be appreciative. I talked to Tim Willett in the water department, and he suggested it could be brought off Duncan. Expensive either way. The 3 wells were gonna be expensive, bringing the line in was gonna be expensive, to be honest, but the applicants at the time agreed to the water line extension. So my understanding is the developers that had the property under agreement could not get financing on the project, given the expense of permitting, the land, the construction, and so I'm not sure they're still involved with this transaction. However, but this proposal has come forward, and in the past, certain subdivisions did condition sprinklers prior to the issuance of occupancy, so the decision itself would have been written that prior to certificate of occupancy, the sprinklers had to be installed. However, in this case, the approved site plans would not include potable water if the insubstantial change request is approved. The site plans approved for the project do not provide locations of the wells or the detailed designs of those wells. And so again, the original application came in with wells, but they have, the approved plans had them removed from the plan and the water line brought in. So should you choose to deem this an insubstantial change, there'd have to be some control in there that a building permit couldn't be pulled for these lots because there's no water to them. And
So-
one of the criteria for approving is sufficient utilities for the use that's being approved.
So if you'll remember, this was, I think it started as 1 house, and it was like 3.
Yep.
And we had this discussion. There was some concern from some abutters about, well, part of it was the parking, which we figured out, and then part of it was the wells, and is there gonna be sufficient water? And we did have some testing and some answers to that, but, or at least some discussion about it, but ultimately, I even remember saying, well, we don't really have to get too much into it because they're not doing wells. There were no wells on the plan. So that leaves us in somewhat of a difficult position, not of your creating, but if it was just going from sprinklers to the town water back to sprinklers, fine, that's easy enough. But I don't know that we can make it an insubstantial change if we're leaving it without any water, because then we have an approved plan that doesn't have water. So,
the developer is no longer involved. He's
Okay.
withdrawn. When it was finally approved and he went through his numbers and worked with the bank withdrew, and the determination was the way the plan now stands, it's not economically viable. So he's withdrawn, he's forfeited his deposit and all the money that he spent going through the permits. It's just not viable. I'm going to remarket the property, and I'm trying to make the property more financially feasible. It may require a redesign, maybe a reduction from 3 to 2, I don't know. But one of the changes that could be made, and I talked to the fire chief, and he seems comfortable with it, and I believe he said he would issue a letter indicating that he would go along with it, that it could make that change. Now, when I talked to the builder, I said, what would have been the cost of bringing the line and putting in, it was 2 hydrants, and the line would have been about $150,000. Now, that's not the total project, but anything I can do to move it towards a viable project is quite frankly what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what the final project will look like. Certainly, it would be, if you agreed to do it, it would be with a condition that they be sprinkled and that there be wells, and you improve the wells. So it would be conditional, certainly on those. But when I go out in the market to bring this to other developers, and I've done work with a number of your local developers, the first question they're going to ask me is, what about these water lines? It's 1,000 feet and 2 hydrants. What is that cost still there? I would say, I don't know. Right now it is. If you were to build it as it stands now, that cost is there. But you know, if you take a piece of property to 3 different engineers, you'll get 3 completely different plans. So I don't know if it's going to be a redesign. Maybe they can do a better job and reduce some of the costs. But certainly this is one cost that with the conditions of putting in wells and putting in sprinklers, I can at least reduce that one and make it a little bit easier.
So,
Does that number, is it offset by the cost to install the wells? Because during the hearing, the engineer implied it would be somewhat of a wash,
Well,
and that's why they were willing to switch.
Is there an actual request, though, about what language to use?
I can have that
No,
developed.
no, I'd prefer there isn't, to be honest. So, I mean, can we just, are we able to change it so that it allows for either sprinklers and wells, or, but even then, they still have to come back, right?
Yeah, I mean, my whole point is, I'm sort of neutral about one versus the other. I mean,
too.
because I would approve either if it had the right safeguards, but it's not an insubstantial change. It sounds like there might even be further changes, so I don't see what the problem would be of just bringing it back informally, voting whatever changes, then you can change, you can deal with every issue that you're talking about, because you can put the proper conditions in, because you can rewrite the decision.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I would say this, we don't have a problem with sprinklers versus the water line.
Okay,
That's
great.
fine. But it's not insubstantial, because that change in itself will trigger other changes. Like you said, you might come back with a project that has 2 houses, and it's gonna have to be redesigned anyway.
Right. I'm not certain, but
No,
it
no, I
wouldn't
understand.
surprise me if whoever I
Correct.
bring it to, I could bring it to any one of a number of builders. They're going to want their own design. This design as it stands isn't financially feasible, so there are going to be changes.
So I don't think we can vote it as an insubstantial change, but what we can say is if we don't have a problem with sprinklers as opposed to the water line. And so you can tell that to the developers that's fine, but you'll have to put in, whether it's wells or whether maybe there's another system, there's something else that they come up with, I
That's
don't
fine.
know.
As long as I can reasonably tell them that that's not a hard and fast requirement of the houses, then I can't say all of that unless I spoke to you people first, before I could make that
That's fine,
statement.
and then just come back with a modification with whatever final
Okay.
plans they want to do.
And you'll have minutes that reflect this, and the fire department's letter is attached to the agenda, so
Great,
they've put it in
Thank you very
writing.
much, appreciate it.
But where does this leave us on drinking water for the whatever goes in there?
Well, not, right now, if something was to be built, it would have to be built with the water lines coming in.
Both for fire suppression as well as for drinking?
As the plan is current. So now we're basically advising, if you don't want to go that route, you want to go sprinklers, fine, but you're going to have to figure out another way to have water, drinking water, and then you're going to have to come back with us for a modification of the plan. So nothing, basically, we're going to deny the request for an insubstantial change. Everything is basically going to be as it was, and if there's going to be a change in, prior to any building, if they want something different, they're going to have to come back. for a modification.
Fine. Actually, that's great for me, because I
Yeah.
can tell the builder what you just spoken, and that'll work.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
So wait, well, let's get a vote. So can we make a motion to
Take unfavorable action. on the-
unfavorable action as to an insubstantial change?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So not insubstantial.
Thank you
Talk to
very
your
much.
builders. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Carol Disney, Save North Andover Wildlife. Okay. Come on up.
Yes.
But, come on up, please. And I'll have you introduce yourself. But to potentially steal some of your thunder in reading all of this, I have no idea why you're here, because this has, from what I can tell, nothing to do with planning. That is not a comment on the,
Well, you know what? Melissa, I said I need to meet with Concom, I need to meet with Board of Health, and she said I'd like you to meet with Planning Board.
okay,
So I prepared something that's 4 minutes,
4 minutes is wonderful.
and then, questions or anything.
Let's do 4 minutes,
Okay.
4 minutes, I'll put 5 on the clock.
5 on the
5 on
clock.
the clock. That sounds great.
No, I know.
Seems very interesting, want to go forward with it. I just don't think it's anything that we regulate, as much as I like to regulate lots of stuff.
Jean spoke to town council. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead, why don't you introduce yourself and then
Sure.
give us your 4 minutes.
Yeah, okay, maybe 5.
Okay.
But it's not a long thing. It's
Fair
very
enough.
interesting. I'm Carol Disney, and this is Denise Dion. And we're part of a group called Save North Andover Wildlife. You might have heard of us, but maybe not. So, here, I'll give you a copy. Your copy. So we're here tonight to quickly tell you about 2 warrants that are going to be presented at town meeting. And as we just discussed, you're not being asked to vote, but Melissa thought you should listen to this, and we think it will be good for you to hear, just as part of the town. So, Jean, if you could just kind of go through the next 4 slides. We live in a town with a strong conservation ethic. We feel very fortunate to live here. As seen by our early adoption of the Community Preservation Act and numerous properties that are in permanent conservation. Back one up, Jean, please. Yeah. Denise and I walked all over town taking these pictures. It was a lot of fun. I'm sure that many of you have had the pleasure of seeing a bald eagle fly by overhead. And just last week, I was at a conference at Rolling Ridge, and I was told that there's 2 nesting pairs. I didn't see them, but I saw a nest at Rolling Ridge. And we've seen bald eagles many, many times at Lake Kachikowick. Okay, the next slide. So our group is dedicated to reducing the use of a class of poison being used in town that is sickening and killing wildlife and pets, and which also poses a danger to children. These poisons are second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides. That's a mouthful, so we call it SCARS for the acronym. And if you break it up, second generation, it's the second derivation of this poison. Anticoagulant, the blood doesn't clot, and rodenticide, rat poison. They're seen all over town outside of businesses and school properties. So the one on my left is the little black box that's all over the place. And the other ones, I call them the fake rocks. You might not notice them, but there's a whole bunch of them on High Street. They're on around the Stevens Estate, Edgewood, and they also are full of the poison. So this is how it works. Here's the show and tell part of the presentation. Want to open that up? You said it was really easy. So here's the black box. Pest control company puts in the poison. I knew you were going to do that. And then here. The mouse goes in,
That's gonna be the mouse.
eats the poison, the mouth goes out, and after a while it doesn't feel that great because it's starting to coagulate or not coagulate its blood, but it takes 10 to 14 days sometimes for the animal to die. So while it's staggering around, it's very, very easy prey and is eaten by other animals. An unintended effect of eschars is secondary poisoning to our wildlife, which in North Andover, you're aware, it includes coyotes, foxes, fisher cats, hawks, owls, and bald eagles. If a predator eats enough poison rats, the poison bioaccumulates inside the predator, and it will sicken and die. And this creates a toxic food web. So I'm not going to really go over this because I'll go over my 4 or 5 minutes. If you can go back just real quickly, Jean. But you can see there's the box on the bottom, and the poison goes up and the poison goes down. Like it goes up when like a rat eats it, and then something eats the rat, or a bird eats the rat. And it also gets in the soil, and it can get in, fish can eat it. So it creates a toxic food web, which we think is bad. Our campaign is not going to focus on all the repercussions of eschars, but there is scientific evidence that, as I said, it can leach into the soil and waterways, impacting invertebrates and aquatic animals. According to the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources Pesticide Program, 500,000 pounds of anticoagulant rodenticides are applied annually in Massachusetts by licensed pet control professionals. So the next slide, Jean. If you look closely, you'll see there's a rodent in that barred owl's mouth, and we hope it's a healthy, clean rodent and not one, laced with rodenticides. Okay, here's the next one, please. These are 3 barred owls that were unsuccessfully treated for rodenticide poisoning at Cape Ann Wildlife. And the number of reported animals, it's an underestimate, because for an animal to know that it's been killed from rodenticide, somebody has to find it, somebody has to take it to a lab. It costs like $800 to be, so usually they just die in the woods. And a couple of months ago, I found a little kestrel on High Street, and I don't know if it hit a wall or if it had rodenticide poisoning, but, I didn't pick it up and, take it for testing. So the number is really an undercount. Okay, the next slide, please. So when we kill owls and raptors and other predators, it's a wildlife tragedy because we're killing nature's best solution to rodent control in their lifetime. So this is showing like in a fox's lifetime, it can eat up to 2,000 to 8,000 mice or rats, depending on how it lives. You can just go ahead and see a great horned owl can eat up to 50,000 rats. Not if it eats a lot of poison rats, but if it lives for a long time. A nesting pair of red-tailed hawks brings 10 to 15 prey items to their fledglings daily. And Tufts did 3 studies studied red-tailed hawks, and they found levels of rodenticides in their bodies in the first study, second study, but it kept going up. And the third study from 2021, 100% of the red-tailed hawks had rodenticides in their body. So it's a really pervasive problem. So this is the easy part, because everybody, this is awful, we don't like it, but people say, well, what do you do? We are not a pro-rat group. We recognize that people don't want rats in their homes and businesses, and we don't want them there either. But poisoning rats and mice with rodenticides is not the solution.
Can I,
Yeah.
So I've read through all of this.
Yeah.
I think something that's missing, and I'm not looking for an answer now, is a cost. So how much, something that's I would imagine will definitely come up at town meeting, if someone would ask, how much do we pay right now for the rodent treatments that we do? And how much would these, if we ban this, as you suggest, how much would it cost to do these other things? So having some sort of, I don't need it now, but having some sort of answer to that question, I think would be very helpful for the discussion.
We're aware of that.
Do we use 100 of these and they cost $10 each? Do we have someone always maintaining them? Do we have to pay for that? Those are the questions I think that will come up at a town meeting that it would be good to have
Definitely.
answers to.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was just building off Eitan's comment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'd be good to also talk to maybe some of the commercial vendors that provide that service with respect to kind of the, essentially a lot of the rodenticide, and whether or not they have actually alternatives that they could.
There are alternatives, and we don't have time to really go over it right here, but In fact, the first thing you really have to do is exclude. Like, you shouldn't have holes in buildings. Like, one building that I looked at, and I talked with the owner of the building, I could reach my hand in the bottom of the building. There was a hole in it. Like, you close those holes, and we do that in our houses if we can. We try not to have holes in our houses, or if mice get in, we try to put like steel wool or, something like that in. The biggest thing is trash, that some businesses leave trash out. If you want to go to the next slide, Jean. If you look at the left, Denise took that picture, but right behind it was a black bait box. And there's been a lot of studies of this problem. And I'm not quite answering your question, but I can get to that at town meeting. But as long as you have that, you're always going to have rats. It's easier for rats to eat that than it is to go in here and do this. There are other poisons available, which I'm not a proponent of using poison. But we had some mice in our house, and I did let him use it for a short while. It's called vitamin D3. The cost is comparable. It does not bioaccumulate in predators. But before that, you really want to exclude, you really want to starve. There's electric traps. We did a presentation last year, and somebody in the back came up and spoke to me later, and he has a business in town, and he says, I don't use that stuff. I use electric traps, and it works great. So it can be cost comparable. The problem is pest control companies like to use this. It's a really nice business model. You put it in, you come 2 weeks later, you take it out, put another one in, and you just can kind of do it forever. And, you don't know if they're finding rats or anything, and escars are the #1 bestseller for the pest control industry, for the companies that make it, so they really like it. But we've done a lot of research and talked to providers that don't use it. And on our webpage, we have a list of 8 people, and it takes a while to do that research, but there's more out there because people have told me about more, so there's places that aren't using it.
So last question.
Yeah.
Do you know if the town uses any outside services, or do we do it ourselves?
They use, I think, the pest control company A1, and A1 does not use escars.
Okay, well, that's good.
So quickly then, there's 2 warrants. One is a bylaw for your municipal land. One is a home rule petition. Let me just explain the difference. I know you know those words, but what this would mean here. The bylaw doesn't actually change anything, but I want it because right now it's only a policy that they don't use escars. We could get new facilities director in, and they could just say, oh, let's use them. I've heard they're great or something. So right now it's working well in the town. We've talked to the facilities manager, we talked to Melissa, we talked to other people. What they're doing is working. But we would like it to be a codified policy. So it wouldn't actually change anything except the protection in the future. We also have in the bylaw, which you might have looked at, I've been talking about escars. I mentioned FGAR. That's first generation anticoagulant rodenticides, which after a while the animals start developing resistance to that. But if you say no escars, maybe they'll say, well, let's use FGARs again. You know what I mean? So we just kind of put that in to cover our tracks. And the home rule petition, the town does not have the legal authority to say you can't use it on private land. So we would have to ask the state to waive the provision to say, okay, that you can. And so we'd have to vote for it. Goes to the legislator. They've gotten a whole bunch of these this year. They're working on about 40 of them right now. Because we're not the only town doing this. There's 106 towns and cities in Massachusetts doing this. Then if the town says yes, the state says yes, and then it comes back, and then we have to figure out a policy. And we would, that would be mostly up to the Board of Health, but we would be willing to help them. Like right now, they check on trash. They find, I was talking to one of the inspectors, and he said one of the problems is that they're finding a lot of trash behind the buildings. And so they could look for black boxes too or something. And also the black boxes are supposed to be labeled, but sometimes they're not labeled. And if they're not labeled, you really don't know what's in it. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you.
And please tell your friends and neighbors and everybody about this, because we're really trying to spread the word.
2 quick things.
Yes.
First, did I hear you correctly that there's some potential impact on the lake through this going down the chain into Fish.
There is evidence, if you look on
Okay.
that, I'm sure
That-
you didn't do.
that-
on the-
that's
on the
good.
fr- But there is evidence, some of it's in the frequently asked questions,
Okay,
and, yep,
that's good.
yep. And there was, yeah, second,
Second question, have you seen the albino red-tailed hawk near Stevie's Pond?
not lately.
Not lately, us either, but I don't want to hold the board. But
Oh, but we just have one more quick thing that I wanted Denise to say.
I just want to share a personal experience. I live in the neighborhood by the East and the West Mills, and there's a pond back there, and I would take my grandchildren walking back there, and one day, and this was before I even knew what these were, my 4-year-old grandson picked up one of the fake rocks, and he was playing with it. I didn't think anything of it at the time, and he wanted to take it home. He thought it was cool. It was a big rock he could hold. And I was like, no, no, no. Obviously, it's not part of nature. You're going to have to leave it here because it's not ours to take. And within that same summer, I was also walking through there, and there had been a barred owl that I could hear. And I was walking through there. This was before they built the Avalon apartment building, and the barred owl was standing on the ground in broad daylight, just standing there and not moving. So there's 25 of these black boxes around the East Mill, and across the street, there's 29 of them on the other side, on the West Mill. So they're everywhere. And then that new Avalon building that they built in that same area has 15 black boxes.
We did what we call a rat brigade, and we went all over town, and I know we missed places, but we found 431 of the black boxes in North Andover. And as I mentioned, the state said, the pesticide board says 500,000 pounds of it are being used. So you saw the slide of the open bait box with it spilling out. That's going into the ground, and that was in a place, I won't mention where it was, but it was pretty close to the lake. So that's a concern.
Okay, thank you
So,
very much.
thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
That was pretty interesting, right?
it was, but I think you should tighten it up. You've got some great points,
Yep.
but tighten it up for the town meeting.
Like where? I mean, we always kind of.
We don't have
hurrying.
time
Yeah.
for this. No, we can't do it here, but you've got some great points.
Yeah. It's hard because we have 4 minutes at town meeting, and to really do a presentation, you need about 20.
Right. You'll never get anyone's attention for more than 4 minutes
I know.
anyway.
No,
so-
I know.
And he's
Right.
pretty strict with the red light.
Oh, yeah, no. So we're going to have a table with some information out and everything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 11 Bull Ridge Road, Brig Leland, request for an insubstantial change to approve October 7, 2025, limited site plan review. Applicant proposes to amend the approved parking plan showing 35 parking spaces to allow for 68 spaces. Gene, introduction, then we'll hear from the applicant.
Sure. The approved parking plan and the proposed parking plans are included in the meeting packet. In addition to increasing the parking space to a total of 68 spaces, the proposed plan includes a note indicating 2 access points on Great Pond Road, bituminous driveways on each side of the field. One of those is a private road. I think we've come to terms that, all right, so this plan suggests overflow parking on that private road. That private road serves 3 homes. There's a common drive easement that prohibits parking on this common drive, so that is not a valid access point for people to park here and to, it's open, you can walk from the private road across this property, but it's prohibited in the recorded easement. I've provided that to Brig. The Conservation Administrator has confirmed that the proposed parking spaces remain outside of the 200-foot riverfront. The Fire Department did visit the site and Brig reviewed the plan with them. They've confirmed they have no concerns with the interior parking area. At that time, I had asked them about this private road. They've emailed me with the understanding that they've spoken to Brig and they cannot park on the private road. So that's the gist of it. It goes from 35 parking spaces, if I remember, to 68 proposed. And if
So I
can-
think the 3 big questions are, what's the change? Why is it changing from 35 to 68? And why is that insubstantial? So those are the 3 questions to be answered.
All right, thank you, Chair, thank you, Board. Brig Leland, owner of the winery. As you might recall, I was here in front of you in October. We had talked at length about parking and our parking plan. We had talked specifically about the field, which is what the predominant change is here. Several of you expressed, concerns about how many spaces could fit and about access with safety and whatnot. There was a decision that we had to make, which was either proceed with our application, which had only indicated 15 spots in the vineyard, in the field, or wait for a future meeting with an updated plan. This was the original approved parking plan, as you can see. And what we had discussed was that the field, I presented 15 spaces. I thought that meant that I had more flexibility. I believe you, Member Peter, shared that I needed to provide more detail. So I went back, mapped it out, and this is what I'm presenting. So, yep.
Where was the overflow on this?
So the 15 spaces right there. Yep.
Where are the overflow?
Yep.
And where are the new spaces in the same?
Yes. Yeah. So if you, Jean, if you.
I'll go back.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
moving the cursor.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the vineyard is here, the vines, and there's an open field this side of the vineyard?
All of that is an open field.
So where it is now is the original 15 spaces, Gene?
Is
that
where-
So
is
those 10.
These 10.
Yep.
10? Okay.
Yep.
And then to the left of your cursor, that's the new spaces?
Yep, and here,
And there.
and all of this.
So you had asked me to basically arrange parking. If in order to get a plan approved, it was to arrange parking in the field. It's an open field. We've actually used this parking for, before limited site plan review for a long time. So what I did was I mapped it out, planned it out. So this is the most logical orientation, because you can see they kind of line up with the vineyard, they line up with the bottom of the slope, the hill, they line up with the stone wall. We also put up rope, just like, other farms in the area.
Where's the access to this field? How do they get in?
So they get in, so the driveway on the right, there's an opening. Yep, right below your cursor, right where that triangle is. Yep, below that is an opening that, I believe it says 30 feet. Yep. So there's a 30 feet between the
Right
triangle.
here?
Yep, right there.
Are any of those spaces paved, or is that all just going to be on grass?
So it's, right now, it's all on grass. There is,
But if this gets approved, does that change, or is it just all?
no, it'll all be grass.
It is in the watershed, and so if they were to pave it, and certainly if it was over an acre, that would require permitting.
And just to be clear, there's no access to these 44 spaces from the shared common easement?
There is access, and this is what I discussed with the fire department. So, that is a private drive that is part of my properties. It's just, we allow it as a shared driveway for the other homes. And the idea is that,
it's an
having
easement, right?
that driveway, I'm sorry?
It's an easement, right?
They have an easement.
Right, so it's,
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
it's just, it's
Uh,
legally,
yeah, I
they have the right
apologize.
to it. So,
Yeah.
okay, go
Um,
on, yeah.
And so having that additional private drive as an egress is beneficial for the cars there, so that they don't all have to go back out the other driveway.
Got it. I mean, is there, and I didn't look in detail on the easement language, but is there a volume of car restriction? Like another, that traverses an easement, or is it like I'm just thinking because essentially you have two entryways that people could use to access.
So there's an easement, it was amended once, it was amended a second time that I know of, and I haven't read it in that kind of detail to see if
Can I
it,
get back to the question that E10 asks is, how is this an insubstantial change? I mean, we're getting pretty deep into this. I mean, in
I
my
guess my
view, there's
question
no
would be,
way
what-
this is
what's
an
prompting it?
insubstantial
Do
change.
you have 68 cars showing up on the property? Like, what's
Yes, I
what's
mean,
prompting
as we discussed in October, 35 cars is not sufficient for our operations.
Hey, what did we approve in October?
35 cars.
Well, and you want to double it. That's not an insubstantial change with all due respect.
And I understand that. That being said, when I asked for what do I need to do to get this approved, Gene suggested it being an insubstantial change, and I think part of that is because we've had these conversations. We've also used this field for years as parking. We went ahead, lined it out. We've had this many cars in the field before. We host private events. We have an occupancy of 83 people seated, 99 standing. 35 cars is unfortunately not sufficient, which is why we are proposing this
Well, I'm
additional.
perfectly fine with hearing your proposal and the merits. I'd probably be inclined to go along with it. My only point is it's not an insubstantial change. I think you ought to come back and make a substantial change, and it's got to be publicized. I feel very uncomfortable approving this when all the public thought all was approved was 35, and now we're doubling it, and without any notification of abutters or anybody else. So, I mean, it's probably fine in the end, but I think you ought to do it publicly. I think with transparency, I think that's just a better way to do it. It's my opinion.
I mean, I've had conversations with the abutters specifically about this style parking. We've walked the site. I've invited the abutters. This was actually part of the discussion that was original in my proposal. I just didn't think last time when I presented the application that I didn't need to provide this level of detail for an open field, and I apologize for that. Just another reminder, when I asked specifically the board last meeting and I said, I need to come back for an increase in parking in the field, the board said, okay, submit an updated parking plan, make sure that it gets reviewed by all the departments, which we have, and now we're here. So this is what I thought was the process, and
Fair enough. I mean, honestly, what I thought was rearranging where the 35 were not changing the number. So maybe that was a mistake, at least on my part. But when I remember we said we're going to keep it like this, and if you need to come back and because you had talked about it, one place versus the other place. My understanding of that was it was going to be where the parking was, not, and then where overflow was, not the number of spaces. So maybe.
and just to clarify, we host private events, which we have been doing.
Yeah.
These private events have 70-plus people. They are for mostly, residents of the town, and to support a 70-person event, 35 spaces typically is not enough, so.
Fair.
Have you been doing that since you got the new permit in October? Have you been hosting and having?
When we had our, once we received our certificate of occupancy, absolutely. We've been hosting events. We've been open for tastings as well, and had, busy days where our 35 spots are just not sufficient. So we have some upcoming events as well that are booked, that have, that are going to be constrained by parking, so.
It sounds like you're in violation of the permit when you allow more than 35 cars.
We
to
don't
come.
allow more than 35 cars. We don't have the spots allowed. I want to clarify. We've hosted events, but nobody has had we have not exceeded our 35 car limit in no instance. And the board made it clear that, in addition, we need to make sure that our parking is oriented properly. So we have hosted events, but we have not exceeded our parking. And in fact, we had to cancel an event because we didn't have sufficient parking.
But you or from another bigger parking lot, or would plenty of venues do?
I could at an additional cost. I mean, this is an open field that I had, as I mentioned, I before having to come to this board for a limited site plan review, I had been using for parking for several years. So I'm not saying that that was right, but that's how we've been using the field. It's always been planned to be a parking field. I've discussed it with all the abutters. I'm not saying that every abutter has been, has agreed with everything, but we've gone down the process, and that was also part of the limited site plan review process, which we also went through the public hearing.
Yep, and I mean, yeah, right. So, I mean, good to hear you're open, that it's being successful. I know that after, when you were here, we talked about that we were given the 35 parking and that there were certain hours, and those have changed, which again is not our jurisdiction, but it does seem like this is different. The only question for, the discussion for today is not whether good or bad. The question is whether or not it's substantial, whether or not it's insubstantial. Because something could be substantial and be perfectly fine, like John said. You know, there seems like there's good reasons, and as long as there's not, you know, a super pushback from abutters and there's proper screening and there's a proper plan, doesn't seem unreasonable. But it's definitely different and more than what we had before. So that's the question. So I guess just kind of any final thoughts on whether this is not on whether, just on whether this is insubstantial or not from down here.
I mean, I know that there's been on commercial properties on 125 or 114, when there was changes to parking, they would come in for insubstantial changes, which we deem substantial, right? So I don't know why we would treat this differently. I mean, this is, I would argue, yeah, I mean, it's nearly 2x, right? Parking spaces, plus you have a shared driveway that potentially is going to have access, and I imagine that your abutters would have comments there, right, with respect to volume and screening. So, yeah, I would argue that this is substantial.
Okay. Not insubstantial.
Yes, and not insubstantial.
John, so, okay. Peter? Okay, any other thoughts?
And not insubstantial.
Okay.
Double negative.
Right,
It is
I know.
substantial.
Right. Well, I mean, the question is, yeah.
May
we're not gonna
I
get
ask
the
the board a question?
Yes.
How could we have avoided if I had known that it was substantial, I would have just applied for substantial. I would have just, obviously done that weeks ago, right?
Yep.
So, obviously, 20/20 hindsight, but
So it's hard
how could
because-
we make sure, how can you make sure that future applicants, by the way, know what's substantial and
Because
insubstantial before?
we don't know until we hear it. I mean, it's kind of, we don't know until you present to us.
Sure.
Until someone presents to us. We don't know if it's how we're going to decide, and we're not allowed to talk about it beforehand
Yep.
based on open meeting laws. So it does put people kind of in a bind, unfortunately, because we can't discuss it ahead of time.
Sure.
You can kind of look back, or if your attorney knows about, if you have counsel about previous ones, but they're all kind of considered individually. So it's kind of tough. You can either just go, and honestly, I think over the last year, it's probably been about 50-50 about ones that we've decided substantial versus insubstantial. And we generally lean more towards not insubstantial if it's anything that's had any sort of kind of history or impact or public input. It has to be really inconsequential to be insubstantial, but unfortunately, we can't tell until you come. So either you have to put it in for a modification and then come and then just go through that process, or you kind of roll the dice here, and if it was deemed insubstantial, then you're off and running. But if it's not, unfortunately, it does delay some of the time. But there's no way for us to know until it's in front of us,
And a lot
unfortunately.
of times, it's worth coming in to see if it could be insubstantial, and in this case, it looks like the answer's no.
Sure.
Right.
And there's no limited edition that we could do that would be insubstantial now that then allows us to at least have a few more parking spots. But in the future, next meeting or whenever whenever the earliest that I can possibly get back here, it has the full additional
I would,
44
I mean,
spaces.
I can never say never, but I would say, we can't do it today based on what we have. If you came in with something that, I mean, if you said 5 spots, you know, maybe, but that's also not really a great way to do business. It's probably best just to get your,
No, and
Just
that,
get
that's
your-
fine, I'm just,
yeah.
you know, I also, you know, it takes time, and
Yeah,
I don't
and-
know what
and-
what this process entails, the new substantial
yeah.
change process.
So, I mean, you can file for a modification of the site plan, and we can kind of walk you through what paperwork is required for that. A lot of it's probably done already, in terms of what you have, but I can't really speak to that. So I think for today, we're voting on whether or not to approve as an insubstantial change, and the will of the board is to vote it that it is not insubstantial. So can we get a motion to deem it the proposal not insubstantial?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so yeah, if you come back with a modification, then we can kind of take a look at it. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, planning board report. Is this just for us to do favorable, non-favorable?
Yes.
Okay. Can I get a motion to recommend favorable action on Articles 3 and 4, authorization to accept grants of easements, authorization to grant easements?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor of a favorable recommendation?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Report of the Community Preservation Committee. John, you want to give us a,
Yeah, Gene, do you have
Brief
the
rundown?
slides here?
The slides.
Samantha, the
Yes.
snazzy signs that Samantha provided for
We'll just take one
the
minute.
select board, and because she did such a good job on it. So I think about it, when I was the chair before, we had no staff support at all, so I had to do everything myself. Now it's easy, I don't have to do anything.
come a long way.
Yeah, I know.
How long has Samantha been on board?
2 weeks.
I would say
Yeah.
3.
Three,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe-
You
maybe
taught her
4.
well, though, Gene.
Where'd she come from?
She was actually working, she, most recently in Somerville, and she was kind of like a liaison between their, it's not a select board, what is?
While we're looking for this, can we
City
get,
council.
we got correspondence, RE 500 Great Pond Road. We're just going to put that on file. Thank you to the submitter. Could you get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 3rd?
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have it.
Let's quickly run through it, John.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty simple this year, actually.
Wonderful.
So,
Hold on one second.
So very quickly, you don't really need to go through this, but this is just the exercise we go through to determine there's plenty enough money, and there is plenty enough money to cover all the projects we want. So we go through how much is in the fund and so forth. And so here is the list of projects that we've funded, and then several projects we did
Can we go
chose.
back to the ones that are funded? Sorry.
Yeah, and can we, do you have the slides? Because I can go through each one by one, because there's
I mean,
it's just a little bit easier to look at them this way.
This way?
So, so first one, the high school fields, if you remember last year, we did the, not through us, but the turf and everything in the fields, and we worked with the town and with the AD, and it was determined that doing dugouts and other amenities related to the ball fields that you see there were going to be the primary thing that we're going to do this year, and that's what we ended up with. So, and it's part of a structured plan, so I thought it worked out well. We went through a couple changes. So that's one. Gallagher Field is, we're going to put redo a lot of the fields to get 2 soccer fields on this side of the street and some parking there, and we work with the town on that. And also, 2 members of our committee, Terry Holland and Rick Green, are very much involved in the fields organization. They run it and they've reviewed everything. So I think this one's pretty solid too. This is one, this ties into the Franklin School playground renovation. They're taking some of the material from Kittredge and moving it over here. One of the problems they have is they do not have anything for special needs students, and this is going to create an area for special needs students, so I think it's a really good expenditure, and it's relatively short money. This ties into the whole third parking lot, what am I talking about? It's a parking lot for the existing fields over by Berry Street, but it's tied into the proposal for the third fire station. And the reason why, if the third fire station's approved, we want to put in parking so that people can access the Berry Street fields and so forth. And we make it contingent to approve of that other article, because if that doesn't get approved, then we wouldn't do this, so okay. Next. This is the one I want to go a little bit low-key on. This is the property right next to the lake. If you're on, as you're coming from Butcher Boy and you go by Ray's Pond and you start up the hill, it's immediately on the right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, good, I'm glad.
Approved.
Yes. The only thing is that we're still in negotiations, so we've been having all the conversations in executive session in terms of the final amount. But we're still in those negotiations, so I don't want to,
But I don't think this is the right picture. But I know what you're talking about, and it's fantastic.
yeah. So, and it was funny because we took a walk out there in the middle of the snow, and I was like dying walking through it, but it's great if we get that, so I
Super.
think that's, yeah.
More kayak storage?
Yes, and we're talking about that, yes,
Ooh,
yes.
wow.
We're talking, I mean, it's over 2 acres, so,
Would there be a place for parking?
well, remember, it's right across the street from Ray's Pond,
Ah,
so you can
Yes.
actually walk across,
Yes, yes, yes.
From, you park
Great.
a car there and you walk across the street and you come there and.
so this is the parcel fronting on the lake, across from Ray's Pond, but that stone wall along the lake, it's on the end furthest away from Butcher Boy, just before you go up the
Yes.
hill.
Right before you go up the
Got
hill.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So keep our fingers crossed, but we're hoping,
Terrific.
so, yeah, you could see it.
Yep,
right,
okay,
yeah.
there it is. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
There it is, yeah, okay, so,
That picture is accurate.
yeah. Yeah, so, historical preservation, we didn't have any direct projects this year, so we put in 10% of the revenue coming in. If you remember last year, we funded some big projects. We funded the one for the church, and they're actually starting the work at the church now. I saw that. And, yeah.
Is that just painting or wood as well, or?
I forget all the details. It's quite a bit. I mean, it's, and I think the church did a really good job. I have a separate nonprofit and everything associated
Yep.
with it and
Okay.
putting our own money in, so that's that. And then affordable housing, we took the full 10% to the Affordable Housing Trust this year. We didn't get any other projects, so that's basically it. And then 50,000 for that. And you can see, I mean, you can see this is
That's the Gallagher
so,
Field.
yeah,
Sounds all like good projects and nothing controversial. Love it.
yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Can we get a motion to recommend favorable action?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. I think that's all for tonight. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Well done.